Spool! Let's go, baby love. Here are 19 reasons to watch the Lisey story miniseries. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson and this is the place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. I also occasionally talk to you about horror movies in my Silver Scream section, and I recommend horror books to you that aren't written by Stephen King in my book club. But this time we're talking about Stephen King. We're carrying on with my walk through the movies and adaptations based on Stephen King's works. And we've reached 2021 and the Apple TV Plus, whatever it is, their miniseries adaptation of Lisey's story, Stephen King's 2006 novel. This one was directed by Pablo Larrain, starred Julianne Moore, Clive Owen, Dane Dehaan, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Joan Allen, among others, and is a weird, dreamy, beautiful, and for me at least, quite brilliant series that I'm very excited to talk to you about. So, as I always do when I'm covering series, there will be fewer spoiler-free reasons than there might be for a movie, because I like to go through episode by episode and give you my notes. So I will let you know when the spoilery stuff is coming, and at that point you can just skip to the end if you haven't watched this series yet. But there will be some spoiler-free reasons to watch this, and then me going through each episode and giving you my thoughts on them. And, well, that's how we're going to do it. Now, if you want to watch Lisey's story, of course, it's on Apple. So there you go. And that's all the preamble we need to do. Let's get into this, shall we? We're going to head off to Booyah Moon and discover 19 reasons to watch Lisey's story. So what's my headline reason to watch this? Well, it is an adaptation unlike any other Stephen King adaptation out there, in a really good way. As I've already mentioned, it's weird, it's dreamy, it's beautiful, it's surreal, and it just gives us something really quite different and, let's face it, unique in the field of Stephen King adaptations. Now, I can fully accept that for some people they just won't get it and it won't vibe with them at all, but I feel like if you're someone who this clicks for, you're going to really love it. Now, King himself was a driver of making this happen. Let me just read you this quote from King in 2017. Lisey's story is my favourite of the books, and I would love to see that done, especially now that there's a kind of openness on the streaming services on TV and even the cable networks. There's more freedom to do stuff now, and when you do a movie from a book, there's this thing that I call sitting on a suitcase syndrome. That's where you try to pack in all the clothes at once and the suitcase won't close. So it's tough to take a book that is fully textured and do it in 2 hours and 10 minutes. But as a TV show, you have 10 hours. And then fast forward 2 years after that quote, Apple gave J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot 8 episodes and said, there you go, do it. Now, the photography and the aesthetic of this is a huge pull. So let's take a moment to appreciate the people who made that happen. So there's director Pablo Larrain, there's production designer Guy Hendricks Dias, and cinematographer Darius Konji. Incredible work from all of them, all round. The stuff shot in our world, in Maine, but also in like hospitals and other places, is just beautifully done. Whereas Booyah Moon is just stunning, but also kind of that little bit harrowing and creepy at the same time, and is just utterly captivating and dreamlike and wonderful. It's an absolute feast for the eyes, whether it's the pool in Booyah Moon, or it's the children's library, or it's Scott's hospital bed, or the Yum Yum tree. It all looks amazing. Oh, and that team also designed the Long Boy, and all I will say at this point before spoilers is chef's kiss. So this one kind of sits in the same realm of Gerald's Game, in that it's a kind of, how in the heck are they going to adapt that? And yet they did, and the result is this pixie dust, fairy tale, haunting, surreal dream thing that is just wonderful. So let's talk about the cast. Clive Owen is pretty good as Scott, and he has great chemistry with Julianne Moore as Lisey. Now, fun fact about Clive Owen, he was born and grew up in a village just down the road from me in Warwickshire. And that village, randomly in 2011, there was an incident there where hundreds of apples just rained from the sky, and it still hasn't been explained. And it kind of feels like a scene that you would see in this miniseries. Weird. However, for me, it's Julianne Moore, Jennifer Jason Leigh and Joan Allen as the three sisters at the heart of this story that really allows it to fly. And they really give it life. They are fascinating They are incredibly believable. Their chemistry is wonderfully real. And, you know, without wanting to sound like a sexist guy, like, it's just a joy to see three middle-aged women just killing it on screen. Like, yes, more of this, please. And then there's Dane Dehaan as Jim Dooley. My God. Up there as one of the best King villains ever captured on screen, for my money. You've got this perfect capture of this incel freak that he is, but also he's got this whole Michael Myers moving around in the background and the shadows and silence stuff going on. And then you get it punctuated with his just sadistic, horrifying actions and abuse towards Lisey. Like, yeah, he is so creepy and so brilliantly played. Okay, this is the point where I'm going to start going into my episode by episode notes, so consider this your spoiler alert. If you've not watched this series yet, you might want to check out here and then come back after you've watched. But otherwise, stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch the Lisey story miniseries coming right up. So episode 1 is Ball Hunt, and right away we see that this thing is dreamy and weird, and right away, at least for me, I love it. And we get this setup that Scott is dead and that Amanda, Lisey's elder sister, is very unwell. We see a brutal self-harm scene. And we also see this Horlicks professor, and of course Horlicks is a university mentioned in Creepshow. We see that this professor wants Scott's papers, and we get some setup of Jim Dooley. And we see that we've got this mixture of human and supernatural stuff. So it's all really captivating. And we learn that Lisey has been set on this scavenger hunt by Scott, and that the hunt is about uncovering memories of her relationship with Scott. And just really great. There's a nice little Easter egg where Jim Dooley is in children's library and he's holding what is a copy of Charlie the Choo Choo, which I've got a copy up there, in fact. So yeah, nice little nod there. And just, we see right away, Jim Dooley is not just going to pick up these papers for this professor and be done with it. Like, he actively says, I'm going to hurt you. Yeah, terrifying. So right away we're like, okay, let's see where this goes. So episode 2 is called Blood Ball, and we see a blood ball from Scott, and it is unhinged and weird as anything. We get a few Easter eggs here. We see a crow. And we learn that Scott and Lisey rebuilt the bandstand after the big fire, which feels like a reference to Castle Rock. And we see that the police are from Cleves Mill, which is a Stephen King town. My main notes on this, I mean, Joan Allen, absolutely killing it. Dane Dehaan, fucking great in this. We see him breaking in. We see him leave the dead crow in the mailbox, which is like really terrifying and creepy. We see our first proper look at Booyah Moon, and that is creepy as well. The only note I had here was of any sort of questioning thing is like, would an academic really be this crazy over a horror writer? But there we go. I'm willing to let it go because at this point I'm just fully in. What is Jim Dooley going to do? How is Lisey going to save Amanda? And where is she going to find all these clues from? So episode 3 is Under the Yum Yum Tree, and we get this flashback to Scott and Lisey's honeymoon. We learn a bit more about Scott's past. We see Scott take Lisey to Booyah Moon, which is really interesting. We see Amanda cutting herself again, which is, again, pretty harrowing. And we see Jim playing around with things. He sets a fire at a house near Lisey's house as a bit of a distraction for the police. And then we see him wandering around Lisey's house, just making his yo-yo sleep, taking a piss, all of that kind of stuff. And we end with Lisey knowing that Jim is there, and we're really building the tension at this point, and I'm in. Episode 4, Jim Dandy. I mean, most of this episode feels like a horror movie. We kick off right away with Jim just wrapping Lisey's head in a plastic bag. We see him subject her to just absolutely fucking horrible violence. He headbutts her. And then he starts moshing around the room, and then it just punches her, and then attacks her with a pizza wheel instead of a can opener, which is just, like, the can opener in the book is bad enough, but the pizza wheel is just horrible. And yeah, he's just so dead-eyed, and Michael Myers, like, it's just chilling. And then we get to see Lisey take a proper visit to Booyah Moon to heal herself, and we wonder, what is she plotting? What's going to happen from this point onwards? So episode 5 is called The Good Brother. This is probably the weakest episode and the most padded episode, but it is the backstory of Scott's brother Paul getting the bad in him and seeing quite what a fucked up dad they had, and just loads of just weird stuff, really. And at the same time, we see Lisey sort of forming a plan and then swimming off with the shovel that she used to hit somebody in the face who was shooting Scott that we see earlier in the series. And you feel like, okay, something is forming here, but also this is the one episode that does feel a bit like filler. This could probably have been a bit shorter. Again, this series could have been 6 episodes, and that could have been maybe a third of an episode instead of a full episode. So episode 6, Now You Must Be Still, is really fun. We see Lisey trying to explain to her younger sister, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, like all of this stuff about Booyah Moon, and she's just like, well, I haven't had my coffee yet, I don't understand you. And you see that the 3 women together are brilliant. Their chemistry is very real. And Lisey is able to bring Amanda back. And we see Dooley being just uber incel freak. And we just get this moment towards the end where the 3 women are just shouting, let's fucking kill him, let's kill him. And it's really great. And you feel like there's some momentum here to take us through the final couple of episodes. And you're feeling like, okay, Jim Dooley's probably going to put up a fight, but also he does not know what's coming to him. So episode 7, No Light, No Spark, we kind of pull back a little bit and we see the story of Scott's death. So he's doing a book reading and he's got a bit of a cough, and then he vanishes to Booyah Moon to try and get his cough gone. But then he comes back and his old wounds are opening, his gunshot wounds and stuff. And there's this really visceral scene where he's on stage and he just sort of vomits Booyah Moon water all over the place and then just completely flops out. And we discover that he has tried to go back to Booyah Moon to get back to this pool that heals him, but the long boy is blocking the path. And we see him die. And then we see, in the present day, Lisey has set a trap for Jim to come along, and she's tried to keep the cops away, but the cop, because he's like worried about Lisey, he comes back, which is a bad choice because Jim shoots him. And we get this super creepy and weird scene where Jim cuts all the lights in Lisey's study and he's walking around with night vision goggles on. And there's this fight that breaks out. Ultimately, Lisey takes Jim to Booyah Moon, and then we end with the long boy appearing, and it's like, okay, let's see how this is going to round off. So episode 8 is Lisey's story, and within 10 minutes, Jim Dooley is done. Lisey injects him with some ketamine, and then the long boy gets him, and they go back to our world, and there's just Jim Dooley's body parts in Lisey's pool, and she drops them off in the river. And then we see her donating all of Scott's stuff to the University of Maine, not Horlick's University. And then we see her go back to Booyah Moon and follow this piece of yarn to her ultimate prize, which is Lisey's story, which is young Scott again telling the story of how he killed his dad and had to kill his dad and wanted to bury him in Booyah Moon but couldn't take him. So drops him in a well and then goes off and sort of starts his own life in the care system. And you get the complete picture of Scott and everything's rounded off. It's all done. We see one of the cops sort of clearly knows that Lisey has done something to do away with Jim, but doesn't want to know the details and is satisfied that the guy who killed his colleague is done for. And it's all a very satisfying ending and a great series. And I love it. Okay, going on to my favourite scene. It is very tough to watch, but the scene where Jim is attacking Lisey, yeah, harrowing as anything, but like a concentrated bit of violence and horror that the story does need and that the story earns and is just incredible to watch.
There's no way to reach him.
That's my favourite line. I do love where the 3 sisters are just chanting that they're going to kill Jim, like the 3 sort of witches. But my favourite bit is super chilling, is where Amanda is just saying that she wants to come home.
I want to come home.
So in terms of connections and stuff, I've already picked out the Easter eggs that I spotted. There weren't loads. Probably one of the things I liked about it. But in terms of connections among the cast and crew, Jennifer Jason Leigh was in Dolores Claiborne. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot, they did 11/22/63. And then, of course, Julianne Moore was in the 2013 version of Carrie and was in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Okay, there we go. Lisey's Story miniseries done. Another one checked off. I think I've got one more miniseries coming up, and then I can get back to movies, which are just on the whole way easier to do because you can watch them in a couple of hours and it's all done. But hey, we're doing this properly, so we're going to plow on through. If you've reached this point, I'm going to throw some plugs at you. Everything I want to plug is in the description below, but those things are my multi-award winning collection of short stories, Once More Around the Sun, my Stephen King trivia book, my range of Stephen King themed band shirts, and the fact that you can become a constant writer, become a member of this channel, get extra content and support me directly. Everything's linked below. Knock yourself out. And if none of those work for you, hey, just watching is great. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and maybe share with a friend. And I will see you again very, very soon. Take care, baby love.